Thank you, everyone, for joining the Thought Fuel podcast. We have a very special guest today, Ferocious Grigoriou, UFC active fighter, preparing for his UFC fight on March 16th. Thank you for joining us, Bambo. Without any further ado, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting me. My name is Charalampos Grigoriou. I'm from Cyprus, and I'm a UFC fighter. And I have my fight coming up on March 16th.
Excellent, excellent. So, for those of you who don't know, Haralambos fights obviously in the UFC. He has an impressive record. He just finished in the past year, knocked out Cameron Smotherman. Prior to that, I saw the most recent fight before that with Chris Disonell, and you just did an absolute clinic on him, like amazing stand up. You wrestled him, amazing Muay Thai kicks. How did you get into mixed martial arts? Did you start from Muay Thai? What was that journey like?
So I started from 6 years old with karate. So I did karate for 8 years. I got my black belt. Um, so yes, I was a champion in Cyprus, in Greece. I got the fifth place in the European Championship, and then I wanted to stop because back then the karate was all about control. You didn't have the full contact. So I said to my father, I'm gonna stop. Um, and then my father was like, okay, look, because I spend a lot of money on this, you're not gonna do anything else. And I said, okay. Anyway, I was young, I was stupid. So then I was fighting in the streets, or I was going to a soccer games just to fight. So, and then my father was like, what do you want me to do to stop? And then I said, okay, I want to start doing it professionally. So I started Muay Thai and kickboxing. I was a champion in Cyprus, and then I was looking for something with more action, and then I moved to MMA. Um, and I'm, I'm doing this from 19 years old.
Wow. Was it easy to find a proper MMA gym in Cyprus? I imagine it's easier now, but 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when you're talking about this, it must have been a less developed scene. I know Muay Thai, we've always had solid Muay Thai kickboxers come out of Cyprus, but from an MMA standpoint, it must have been much less developed.
Yeah, it was very hard. And you're right. Yeah, MMA, Muay Thai in Cyprus, and kickboxing, we have high level. But MMA, no, especially back
Oh,
then.
yeah.
I mean, you had limited options. Uh, and that's one of the reasons that I left and I came in the US because, first of all, they have opponents. I used to fight the same guys all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, so, because on the top level we were three and we were
And always
fighting
seeing
each
each other, right?
other. Yeah. So, and that's why I decided to come to
Yeah.
US.
And back then, what years was this? Because I imagine also the UFC itself didn't pick up. I think it picked up in like 2006, 2007. Before that, Pride Championships was like really, really big. Was there any
Yeah.
specific fighter that inspired you back then that you said, "Oh, I want to be like this guy. Like this is the guy I want to emulate"?
I was always watching on YouTube videos from UFC. The motivational videos with the UFC fighters. I remember I was watching Dominic
Oh wow,
Cruz,
yeah.
Uriah Faber, uh, TJ Dillashaw, all these guys, and then I was watching McGregor. It was just the beginning for McGregor. I remember before I come to New York. Um, so I was watching it, and I was visualize myself to step in this cage. It was so crazy. Trust me, I remember because I was watching them step in the cage, and I'm like, oh, imagine if I was me. So. Um, Uh, yeah, and when I came in the United States, and then I started like meeting these guys, the big names that I was watching in the UFC, like John Jones, all these guys, and I'm like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
real. And I remember the first fight I've been in New York just to watch, and Dana White was there. I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah. Which fight was that? Do you recall which one it was?
Yeah, it was the Ring of Combat in Atlantic City, and I remember that day they signed Merab Valishvili, my
Yeah.
teammate in the UFC.
Who just I mean, I messaged you over the weekend. He absolutely dominated Henry Cejudo. And for the audience that doesn't know who that is a US Olympian in wrestling. And Marab just, he literally picked him
Yeah.
up like the same way I pick up my 3-year-old daughter up and threw him on the canvas. I don't do that to my daughter. Don't call child services on me, but he manhandled him, and it was such an impressive performance. There is no doubt that he should fight for the title next. I think he should have fought for the title during the last match. He's beaten Peter Yan also impressively, who's a beast as well. So, I mean, Marab is an animal. I also heard that he went 3 rounds with Aljamain Sterling right before the fight. So you're just wondering like how competitive it must be in that gym to fight and train, and the bar must be so high in that gym, so high level. So from your experience from going from probably smaller and smaller gyms from in Cyprus to one of the most well-known gyms in the MMA community, Longo Weidman MMA, and being around so many killers, how do you think that's made you be like from a competitive standpoint?
Look, I'm a completely different fighter, 100%, because I'm watching some videos when I was in Cyprus, and I'm like, oh my God, I look terrible. Um, so yes, for the level in Cyprus, I was the best, but the level here is something else. Um, when I came in the States and I went to my gym now, Longo and Weidman, yes, I had very good striking, uh, but trust me, I remember they were kicking my ass. Until I get here. So especially with the wrestling, because in the States they have wrestling in the high school, and everybody knows how to wrestle. So for me, it was hard at the beginning, but then training after training, I became much much better.
Yeah, and anybody that has done wrestling or jujitsu knows that it is not a nice thing to practice. Like you have like these bigger, sweatier dudes just holding you down. Really, it's very, very hard. And especially if somebody's been doing it since like 10 years old, and the level that we have here in the US, it must be so challenging. Um, how has how has being humbled like that in the gym helped you kind of say, okay, well, now I want to improve significantly? Did you work on wrestling specifically for a very long time when you joined the gym?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I used to do a lot of wrestling in my gym. I used to do privates with the wrestling coach. Um, you have no other choice because everybody's a wrestler
Yeah.
in my gym. So you have no choice. You're gonna learn 100%. Uh, so and I knew that it was my weakness. Uh, but now, but now I mean, like I'm like 10 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Um, um, so even now, it's very, very, very hard for everybody in my gym to take me down.
Yeah. So you're,
Even Merab, even Aljami.
yeah.
Um, so yes, because of them, I became so good now.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're very proud about your takedown defense, and you're obviously working with some of the best guys in the division. Um, so I guess from that, right, you're here in New York. I imagine that it must have been very hard for you to come here, not just from like a visa standpoint, leaving Cyprus, which is one of the most beautiful places on earth. We have to say it, right? Leaving your family, coming here to the US, where I think you have some family here, but it's not an extent. Is it an extensive family, or do you have a big support system?
Yeah, it's my uncle actually in New Jersey. But when I came in the United States, I didn't know about New York, New Jersey. So I came, I didn't call my uncle because we didn't have like a strong relationship. Because, I was living in Cyprus, he was
Yeah,
living here. Um, but when I came, I had my wife. Yeah, back then it wasn't my wife, but um, because she was studying here, and she's the one who said you have to come in New York to do what you love, because in Cyprus, uh, I was doing the martial arts, but it was like a hobby because you cannot make a living with this in Cyprus. And I used to work as a nurse because I studied nursing in Cyprus. So I worked for 6 months, and then my wife told me to come in New York. So I came. I was living with my wife till now, um, and I didn't look. I didn't know where's my uncle. And I remember one day he called me and was like, "Okay, I came in New York. Let's go out." And then we built our relationship. But when I came, I didn't know anything. I mean, um, I didn't have friends. So I got some connections from Cyprus, and I found a small gym in Astoria, where I live, and that's it.
yeah. So you touched on something very important. Obviously you had your wife that sounds like she was a very supportive partner to say to you, hey, follow your dream. How important was that to have that person that's next to you to support you in pursuing your dream, leaving a very secure job with nursing to come to New York, where there's a question mark. There's no guarantee that you're going to be a success.
Yeah. Uh, Look, at the beginning it was very hard, but as you said, the support from my wife was very important. Even now, um, even when I have my upside and downs in my career, um, is very, very important because you need somebody to support you, to give you um, like you to give your energy back. Because I remember one time in my career, I was very, very bad. I almost quit. Uh, and that the time that you need your right people around you.
Yeah, no, that sounds very inspiring, and having the right people around you to support you through your decision and seeing it through is very, very important. Um, and you studied nursing, and that's, such a, it's a lucrative profession. It's a secure profession. There's always going to be sick people. I imagine in Cyprus when you said to everybody, "Yeah, I'm leaving this profession and I'm going to go try and be a UFC fighter in America." I'm sure a lot of people said, "No, you shouldn't do that," right? Um, how did you kind of deal with that, or you just kind of just ignored everybody and you said, "I'm going to do this. This is what I need to do. This is my purpose."
Look, most of them laughed. Um, uh, and look, I wasn't happy with my
Yeah.
job. I wasn't happy at all. I remember I was going to the hospital with black eyes from training. It was very funny because I was trying to treat somebody, and I
You looked
was,
like a patient.
uh, yeah. So, yeah, and I was very sad. And then after the conversation I had with my wife, who told me to come in the States, then um, she took care of everything to do my visa application, um, the appointment at the embassy, and then I did my my interview. They gave my visa, and the same day I booked my tickets. And when I booked my tickets, only my wife knew it, not even my friends or my family, nobody. So I booked the tickets because, as you said, everybody was like, no, I knew it already. So I booked the tickets, and then I told them that I'm leaving. I'm going to New York. Uh, yes, they didn't really believe me, but I think it was a week or 2 weeks before. Uh, I told them again, and I'm like, I'm serious, I'm leaving. And then, they started, oh, where are you going? I mean, like, who you think you are? You're gonna make it? And then, no, it's a jungle. Uh, and that's the reason I booked the tickets first. So then they didn't have any choice. Um, very, very few people believed in me. Probably, to be honest, probably nobody believed I'm gonna sign with the UFC. Um, but here we are.
Yeah, exactly. And you were part of Dana White's Contender series, and I think you won your contract, obviously by knocking out Cameron Smotherman. Um, I guess, what was that feeling like, being in front of all those people and just having this audience, and like there was so much pressure on you. This was your dream, all these sacrifices that you made leading up to this moment. A lot of people, they buckle under that pressure, right? And we see a lot of
Yeah.
amazing athletes make it to the UFC, and they, in their first fight, they don't do well because it is overwhelming to be in front of all those people on that big of a stage. How did you manage all that
Yeah.
pressure and stress leading up to the fight and in that moment?
Uh, be, Look, I managed it so well, I can say, because I was thinking what I sacrificed, and um, where I was like 7 years ago. Uh, Especially, I remember when they have the trailer for you, um, and they had the trailer for me before I go out there in the cage, and they showed how I started. They were showing like pictures of me and my brother when I was like, I think, 10 years old with the karate uniform. Um, and or they showed fights when I was fighting in the basements. Uh, and I'm like, look at me now, I'm here. I'm so close to side with the UFC. And then I saw my people in Cyprus watching me, and I knew that the whole island uh, were watching my fight. So I said, that's it, man. There is no other option.
Yeah. That's so you just accepted all that pressure and you said you realized what the stakes were and you're like, I'm not going to let myself down. I'm not going to let anybody down.
Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah, and we're very excited as a Greek Cypriot myself. I can't tell you how excited I am for this fight coming up. We are looking for our first UFC champion. Obviously, we don't have a lot of opportunity to be part of a lot of sports just because of resources and how small Cyprus is to be this competitive at this stage. And the fact that there's a Cypriot out there that is competing at the highest level in probably one of the most competitive and exciting divisions, the bantamweight division.
Yeah.
It makes myself proud and a lot of other people proud that I speak to, and we're looking forward to this March 16th fight. What does a day to day look like for you? Like, do you train 4 hours a day, 6 hours a day? How does that day look like?
Look, every every athlete or fighter is different. For example, uh, uh, our our motto is, doesn't matter. I mean, how many times a day you train, but how hard you train. For example, me, I can train for an hour or 2 hours or 30 minutes, because I have some sessions that the duration is like 30 minutes or 20 minutes. We try to make it like the fight, the 15 minutes, but it's like 15 minutes hell. Uh, so this is what I do. Every day is different, but yeah, training every day, and we do like the right diet because I have to cut weight. I'm trying to sleep very good. Uh, that's my life actually. Especially in a fight camp, I don't have a life. It's like gym, home. That's it. And this is what I want. I don't really like to go out when I'm in a fight camp. I don't want to hang out with guys or go out with friends, uh, because I'm in my own world. I want to stay focused, no distractions, nothing.
Yeah. I was reading Hickson Gracie's book, Breathe, and he talked about his fight preparation leading up to a fight. And he was obviously a pride champion. So he was living in Japan and he would go into the forests of Japan and just be by himself for weeks, just preparing mentally. What's your preparation process? Like, how do you disconnect and focus leading up to a fight?
Uh, as I said, the that's one of the reasons that I don't go out, because I want to have um, my mind clear. Um, uh, any like issues or like thoughts I have, uh, I talk with my wife. Um I pray a lot. So, and I think because I've been in a bad situation, like mentally, and I did something like similar that I said I'm gonna take a break from the fights. I wanted to go like upstate just to, fresh air. Uh, Sometimes you need a break. Um, so this is what I do. I don't do something specific. I stay focused. I stay positive because I know my skills. I know how much I want it, and that's it.
Yeah. And you said that you pray, and not a lot of people are open about that, how faith has helped them in their journey. But do you pray often? Do you look to God for answers? Do you practice gratification?
Yeah, for sure. I pray every like morning and night. I go to the church every Sunday. I speak with my priest. I confess. Uh, because sometimes we have, especially fighters, man, we have the mental game is very important. And sometimes, if you are not in the right position, is not good. So sometimes I have bad thoughts, and then I talk with my priest or I pray. And trust me, everything for a reason, and I think I'm here today because of it was meant um, to be here to meet my wife because before I come in the States, I wanted to go to the UK, and I try so hard to go, so hard, and I couldn't. I'm like, why? That was the
Yeah.
reason to be here today, to be close to God because I wasn't, to be in the UFC and with my
Yeah,
wife.
that's great. And it's funny that you tried to go to the UK, which is typically easier for Cypriots, and
Yeah.
you succeeded in the most hardest place to come to from Europe. So that's actually good to hear. So, I guess from your experience, right? You talked about being in a bad place and a good place. You've had losses in MMA, right? Um, how do you allow that not to impact you and learn from that experience and move forward?
So because um, as I said, I took a break from fighting, um, and I had some time for myself because I remember I was 4-1, and I was very close to sign with the UFC, and the UFC said, okay, he needs another win, and I was like, okay, let's fight. I want to sign with the UFC, and then I got a loss, and then I'm like, okay, I want to fight again. I have to come back, and I was rushing it, and then I lost again, and then I was very bad. That's why I needed the break, and I'm like, okay, let's start from uh, from the beginning because I was so close to stop. I said to my wife, I'm not gonna fight again, and I texted my manager back then, and I said, I'm gonna go for another run, for one more run for the UFC, uh, and that was it. Um, I have all the right people around me. I was trying to be careful. I tried to keep my ego down. Um, and yeah,
Yeah. And
and finally I signed with the
yeah, exactly.
UFC.
And there's a lot of examples in MMA where fighters just took a break and then they came back stronger than ever. One of the most famous one is George Masvidal, and he just took a break after three decision losses to people that he thought he could win. Took a break, came back, and just had probably the best year that any fighter could have, and just had like
Yeah.
three impressive wins that were amazing. Um, so I guess from your perspective, right? You have this really good record now, and I just went through your record and I noticed that there were a lot of like canceled bouts, which could be probably one
Yeah.
of the most frustrating things for a fighter because you prep, this is a little bit different than any other job. You have to prepare, invest so much time in studying an opponent and really understanding how you're going to take them out, right? How do you
Yeah.
pivot so quickly to fight somebody else?
First of all, yes, it's so annoying. Even for this fight, that was my third opponent. So I had two, and they canceled. And look, I mean, because you train, the most important is to be in shape, to have a good cardio. And I said, it's okay because I was like, I'm in shape, and it wasn't like a huge like change. I mean, my opponent was like they had the similar style, so was okay. But yeah, sometimes if the difference between them is huge, yes, you have to change your whole game, the game plan. But for us, was okay. We had time for the preparation, and my opponent have the same style. Uh, so it wasn't like so bad,
Yeah.
actually.
And I guess, you obviously work on a game plan, but it must be a lot of pressure to also offer an entertaining fight. And do you struggle with that, sticking to the game plan versus trying to, I'm going to knock this person's head off, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah. Look, I don't even try it. It comes by itself. The knockout.
Awesome. Awesome.
Uh, I was always exciting fighter, uh, and I try to stay with the game plan. But I know that if I go in there and I throw a good punch, and and it goes to the target, I know he's gonna go down. I know because I'm very strong. Um, I always stay in the. Yes, you're always looking for a finish to be exciting, but I think that's my style. Um, because all the strikers have exciting games because they like to throw. They are not like wrestlers that they gotta take you down, hold you down. And that's my style, and I don't even really try to be exciting.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the only complaint that I have from the last one that it finished so soon. But then when I saw, I saw the Desano fight, which was like ended in round four, I was like, wow, like you really put on a clinic on him. So I encourage people to look for that fight online. Um, so I guess, Bamba, from your experience, like you obviously are a full-time fighter. Do you have sponsors that are helping you through this time?
Yeah, we have sponsors, and this is very important for us because we have very good relationship between us, and their support means a lot. And I wanted to shout out to Flash Motors, one of my sponsors, the Nax Head, Xenos Construction, Joanna Foundation, Mediterranean Foods, and We Capture Media. Uh, I'm here. I'm here today in the UFC because of them.
Yeah. Well, thank you to those companies for doing this. You know, I'm sure I represent a lot of Cypriots when I say this. We are very, very proud of you. And we are looking forward to seeing you having enduring success in the UFC and beyond, because there is always that beyond. And
Yeah.
we're hoping that, you know, with you, the same way that Baghdadis inspired a whole generation to be tennis players in Cyprus, that you also inspire a whole generation to be MMA fighters in Cyprus.
Yeah, trust me, I'm gonna change the whole game in Cyprus. Trust me. That's my main goal, because I know where I started and how much I struggled, and I wanna make a better future for the young athletes. And I'm gonna do it, trust me. It's one of my plans.
Yeah. No, and obviously you're developing now an amazing network of amazing coaches you can bring to the island just to elevate the quality of fighters that we have there, and hopefully shed a spotlight on the scene there so people are inspired that, okay, I come from a small place, whether it's Lefkosia or Limassol or Paphos, but I can make it to New York, to the biggest stage on earth. You have a very inspiring journey, and I hope it inspires others to follow suit, especially from Cyprus.
Yeah.
So, Haralambe, where can people find you if they want to seek you out? Do you have social media? Do you have a website? Do you?
Yeah, they can find, first of all, they can find everything on Google, but we work a lot on Instagram. If they write my name, Haralambos Grigoriou, or my nickname, the Ferocious MMA, they're gonna find me. Uh, and yes, there we post all the news, the upcoming fights, the interviews, post-fight interviews, and
Do
everything.
you have any ferocious merchandise people can shop for?
Yes, it's coming soon.
Okay, all right. We're
That's
looking
one of
forward
it,
to
actually.
it. Oh, my.
That's one of it.
Awesome, awesome.
Uh, but soon, I think we're gonna have it ready after the fight, because now I'm trying to stay focused.
Absolutely.
Um, but we have everything, clothes and everything.
Excellent. So, thank you for joining us today. It's been a great interview. Thank you for sharing this inspiring journey. We are looking forward to seeing you be successful in your fight on March 16th. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, and we're gonna talk soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for joining this week's episode of the Thought Fuel podcast.